in the Georgia State House, and the standard pulled it out of the vault. Intro. State Representative David Huddleston was elected to the House of Representatives in 2022. Serves the citizens of House District 72, which includes portions of Carroll, Hurd, and Troop. David's a fifth-generation farmer from Carrollton and currently resides on his family farm in Roopville, where he and his son Andrew operate their cow-calf operation, their chicken houses, their hay fields, their beehives, and probably a whole bunch more I don't know about. As a state legislator, he is interested in legislation that would encourage small business and local economies, modernize law enforcement, equipment, training, and techniques, as well as securing resources for local school districts. Furthermore, he seeks to support rural communities through legislation that will promote farming, agriculture, and enhancement initiatives such as broadband. He retired after 36 years with Carroll EMC. He was past president of the Hurd County Cattlemen's Association, works with UGA Extension Services, covering 6 counties, 10 area FFA programs, and 4-H programs. Currently president of Georgia Cattlemen's Association. And finally, he serves on the following committees: House Agricultural and Consumer Affairs Committee, Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications Committee, House Interstate Cooperation Committee, Natural Resources and Environment Committee, and Special Committee Resource Management. Well, I'm out of breath. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing today?
Good.
It's awesome to be here.
Well, thank you.
Hey, I want to start out by saying I just learned something the other day about Community Voice. I was watching one and saw where now on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've actually watched some on YouTube. That's pretty awesome to be able to do that live, like I said, on YouTube.
They'll be archived for the longest term.
Yep.
Mark Zuckerberg basically told us we had to drop them off of the Facebook after 30 days, or maybe it was 3 months. But anyway, so we're more focused on YouTube than ever. Yeah. Speaking of that, a lot of focus is, and we kind of want to hit this out of the chute, agricultural term, by the way.
There you
go. Early on, because it gets all. In fact, we got a news story this morning.
Yep.
You're on the. Let's see.
Resource management.
Resource management applies to data centers, correct?
Yeah.
And tell us what's the latest scuttlebutt on data centers.
Well, right now, data centers is a hot topic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've had guests on the show that y'all have talked a lot about data centers, not only here in West Georgia, but all over the state. The thing about, like I said, state of Georgia has been named, over the last 11 years, number one place to do business. And that's a great thing because it's bringing in tax revenue, it's bringing in jobs, you always want to see growth. But it comes down to balance. And basically, Speaker Burns this last session appointed a special resource management committee led by Chairman Brad Thomas, and he's very big into the AI and the technology, so he's very knowledgeable. But they chose a lot of the members to be on Resource Management Committee that had backgrounds that I think would bring some talents to that committee, and I guess they tapped into me for my years of serving with the EMCs of 36 years. And I'm also on the Electrical Utility Telecommunications Committee. So basically over this past year, we've actually been meeting around the state, hearing testimony from individuals, from businesses, number one, trying to learn, get educated. Basically, it's not just related to data centers, but it's the infrastructure of Georgia. If you get to thinking, being proactive, it's kind of like back when I was with EMC, we used to have a 20-year work plan, and we would look at it every 3 to 5 years. I think Georgia's doing the same thing as with being proactive of that infrastructure, knowing that growth is here, growth is coming. We've got to make sure that in 20 years we have that infrastructure available for power and water. There's many ways of generation of power, and we've talked about those in the past shows and that type of thing there. But really, ultimately, I think the biggest concern to the constituents in the areas is water. I mean, there's not a lot of resources of water. So basically, like me with my poultry industry, I use a lot of water for cooling in the summer months. I'm on well water, but I use a recirculating type of system for my cooling aspect, and I just have to retop it off due to evaporation and that type of thing there. A lot of businesses have geothermal, which is a closed loop HVAC type system, basically generate cooling, and then just the same way, top off either a leak or indoor evaporation. So I think if it comes down to data centers, right now it's the Wild Wild West. And I mentioned that earlier. There's a lot of unknown out there. Data centers has been around for a long time. But you get to thinking today, people are using more technology, from day to day that we utilize on. So within that Wild Wild West, we've got to make sure, I'm going to go back to the Resource Management Committee, that we're trying to find that factual data that if this is David Huddleston saying, that ultimately Georgia, if we're recruiting business coming into the state of Georgia, we may set some guardrails, some parameters, or whatever it may be to know that we are going, I guess, save in those resources of power and water. We don't want to put the burden on the constituents, the citizens. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when data centers come in, and as like I said on the radio spot this morning, there was a vote made, Douglas County, Villa Rica, that type of thing there, it comes down to local government. It comes down to local planning and zoning. It comes down to local city council. It comes down to the local commissioners of determining what's best and not best for their local area. So we hope that we all get educated and there's not a lot of misinformation shared out there, that we've got to make those educational decisions on better behalf of our communities and our people. I've had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks, months, whatever, related to data centers because people has a lot of questions as we're speaking about today. I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day, and I says, I'm going to use I, basically talking about society, but I'm really saying about we. A lot of times people, we all have cell phones, these iPhones, smartphones, smart TVs. A lot of times basically within that, we have caused the need of data centers because I've saved, how many pictures do I save of my cows on my phone? Sure. How many times do I Google? How many times do I use ChatGPT? Things like that we utilize because I may have two cell phones, an iPad, or whatever. So we have caused the need of needing those data centers. Now, ultimately, within data centers, basically, I was talking about the growth coming, and we're going to talk about preservation of farmland and growth and that type of thing there. It comes down to balance. We've got to find that balance because we know we're going to grow, but we want to preserve those rural communities. And so I think as a state, has got to work with these local governments, like I said, within bringing these here, knowing, but it's about location and resources. Every location is not the correct location, and every location may not have the resources needed. So we've got to find that right balance. We've got to find those right answers. We've got to work along with our communities, work along with our local governments to make those best decisions. And right now we're still in that fact-finding data that to allow us to make those decisions for our communities and for the people of those communities. You have a lot of people for it, have a lot of people against it. But like I said, we've just got to work together because number one, we know we're using technology, but we got to be sustainable, not only for today, but for generations to come.
Okay, that's a good summation, and we're going to have a kind of a hard pivot, if you will, because we could speak the entire program on data centers, but that gives us an update. You mentioned as you were coming in the studio that more and more of your time seems like has been devoted to constituent services. What's going on with that?
To be a state rep, number one, I'm a local farmer here in the community, retired, co-op guy. Know a lot of the folks within the communities that we served over those years. But being a Georgia State Representative for District 72 is constituent services.
It's a part-time job, though.
Some may say. And the thing about it is you can be as available as you want to be available. And I think when your constituents start seeing you being available, they'll reach out to you. Because my job is basically over the years is creating those contacts, those relationships with those statewide agencies, with industry, whatever it may need, because when a constituent reaches out to you, they're in time of need, they're in time of an ask, and basically you're their last resort. And sometimes the clock's ticking. So it's amazing at not only my constituents of District 72, but I've been affiliated with a lot of ag organizations throughout the state, and I've even had others around the state because they have that personal relationship with me of needing that assistance. So I work along with those other state representatives in those areas, but I still work along with that constituent, even though they may be somewhere else to assist them in that. It could be anything from Secretary of State's office within licensing, Department of Community Health, Department of Family Children Services, Department of Revenue, Department of Education, GDOT. It's just unreal. But I had one the other day. It was an elderly lady, had some issues with some services that she's provided, and she had not had any luck with anybody calling her back, working with her on that. So I spent time with all those agencies to create those relationships. I don't cry wolf. When I call, they know, hey, David needs something. She's been working on this for a few weeks. I got a call about 9 o'clock that morning, and by the end of the day, we had it resolved. So I got a text that evening and said, hey, thank you so much for getting. Those are the wins. I've worked with a lot congressionally, federal issues within passports, within Veterans Affairs. I have worked a lot this year on Veterans Affairs and become to have a love for that, for our veterans. I have worked on one. It took us about a year and a half to get a resolution, but when they call you up and tell you of the win, that it's been resolved, it's been taken care of, and I had one the other day that we'd worked on, and I told the wife of the husband, the veteran, I said, well, I got one ask. I said, I know you're excited, we got it resolved, I said, but hopefully one day we'll cross paths and get to meet one another. That's the great part about the job, is you're getting to help constituents that I have not even met yet, but that's the part of being a legislator, is being that servant leadership. It's serving the people. And like you said, it's just, I've got to work on constituent stuff when I leave here. Yes, it's become an everyday thing. Yes, it's pretty much a full-time job, but that's the greatest thing about it.
Our guest this morning is David Huddleston. He's state representative serving District 72 in the Georgia House of Representatives. We'll be back with more with David after this.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Do the math. At Oak Mountain Academy, our average graduating class has just 12 students. We celebrate a 100% graduation rate with more than $10.5 million in college scholarships offered. Plus, 96% of our students are accepted into their top choice college. Do the math. Can you see the value of an OMA education? I'm Patrick Uran, head of school at Oak Mountain Academy, and I'm here to help you do the math. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us so that you can discover your journey on the mountain, where every path leads to purpose.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. David Huddleston, State Representative for District 72, is in the studio. You're president-elect now of the Georgia Cattlemen's Association, and more, particularly for your district, which is predominantly rural, we start hearing about preservation of farmlands, the rural nature of like your district, and how property tax relief can tie into helping preserve the rural lands. We also have conservation value, use value assessment. Yeah. All of these things kind of are all in one giant basket. Can you unravel some of that for us, and how confident are we, if at all, that the rural nature of your district will remain so?
Okay, well, let me jump in. You mentioned that I was president-elect of the Georgia Cattlemen Association. I've been affiliated with the Cattlemen Association since I've been a junior, 14, 15 years old. Started raising heifers when I was about 12, 13 years old. And the biggest thing is being an advocate, being that voice. No different being, as we've talked about, being a Georgia state legislator. So within the Cattlemen Association, I'm president-elect coming up in April for to be the statewide cattlemen's president. I've been affiliated with a number of local chapter associations, Carroll, Hurd, and other ones when I was with EMC advocating for them. And the Georgia Cattlemen Association, I was asked, basically when I was at the Perry National Fair, Moultrie Farm Show, people says, why should I join Georgia Cattlemen Association? And a lot of times it goes back to those relationships. I would ask the individual where they're from, and most likely I could connect them up with someone within wherever they may be. And I said, well, really, by joining the Georgia Cattlemen Association, and I'll use Carroll County as Neil Hendricks was with me. He was, president of the Carroll County Cattlemen. He's at Moultrie, so I'll use him as an example. He may ask, why should I join Georgia Cattlemen Association? And I said, well, where are you from? He said, Carroll County. So I connect him up with Carroll County, and like you say, the industry, the rural, the cattle aspect here in rural West Georgia. And I said, well, really, when you join Georgia Cattlemen Association, you're joining your local chapter. And that's who we want to connect you with is your local chapter. And so we want to create that relationship there. But within the Georgia Cattlemen's Association, at that state level, we become the advocate, the voice of 75 different chapters around the state, 5,000 members. And it's basically just being that voice at that state level, at that federal level, representing that local individual, that local constituent, that local cattle producer in your home county, in the West Georgia area, or wherever your county chapter may be. And a lot of times there's 15 regional presidents, vice presidents that we work with regionally. We're actually in Region 4. Glenn Robinson is that region VP. It's our job at state level to help those region VPs have the tools needed to assist in programs for all those local chapters. So that's kind of, we're looking at something this coming year is going to focus on programs, make it more educational. That's kind of going back to the rural preservation of farmland, CUVA, that type thing there. But also at the same time there is we have a number of events throughout the year to, like you say, promote the community of the beef industry. Beef industry is changing each and every day, as we've seen within the markets and that type thing there of pricing, of supply, demand, inventory, that type thing there. It comes down, representing the beef industry at the state level goes back to the rural preservation of farmland. If we don't have farmland, we can't raise the cattle. If we don't have raised cattle, I was talking to Junior Chamber here locally the other day. No farms, no food. And I explained that if we don't have the farms, we don't have the food and the fiber. As our state ag commissioner talks about, food security is national security. So basically we've got to look at measures CUVA as to where we can afford, have those tax breaks, property tax opportunities to be able to afford the land, because we see that the land value is going up each and every day because the growth is coming. So it's driving the land, supply and demand. So we've just got to make sure, not only at the representing the cattle industry, but even state legislature, that we've got to look at property tax relief, property opportunities to where that it, like I said, it doesn't get outrageous that we can't farm for not only today but generations to come.
The Metro has 6.1 million people, and the entire state has 10.3 million people. How do you balance that out in the state legislature?
Balance out as in from a farm aspect?
Yeah, from a preservation of.
Well, I think there, number one is to balance it out is basically is work along with those folks in the rural communities to where they can afford farming, because basically, like I said, the price of the feed, the fuel, the fertilizer, the equipment, property tax, everything continues to go up. So we got to look at ways of incentivizing to work along with them to be able to keep them in business, not only for today but for tomorrow. But we've got to educate, no different than I was the other day. I was, at the Atlanta Food Bank. I've been up there, talked to of young individuals from the Atlanta area, teaching about farming and where the food and fiber comes from. And so basically, we've got to educate with them the process of to where they understand that finds that right balance.
Where does government mess up when it comes to supporting the agricultural industry, or does it, in your opinion?
I personally feel that they don't.
Okay.
Because you get to thinking, the number one industry, I think the number one industry in Georgia, if Georgia's the number one place to do business for 11 years, the number one industry in Georgia is agriculture. So I think as a state, me as a legislator, me as a president-elect of the Georgia Cattlemen's Association, just an ag advocate, is promoting agriculture in this state. So it goes back that I've had a lot of conversations. If Georgia's the number one place to do business for 11 years, but the agriculture is the number one industry, then we need to promote agriculture as that number one industry in Georgia. That's educating folks that may not know about it, but it's assisting the ones that's in farming to where we can be sustainable for years to come.
So how do you preserve the family farm?
I think basically, I think there's going to be ways of preserving the family farm. It's not, giving out dollars. It's basically having those incentives to where it's no different in the gate card. Georgia taxes, Georgia agricultural tax exempt. That's an avenue of a tax credit to where purchases that I make for the farm, I save on that state tax. So that allows me for dollar savings that I can invest in other ways. I think basically to preserve the family farm is me as a farmer is investing in the young individual. I'm fortunate to have a son that is willing to come back to the farm to make it, a way of life, to make a living. But we, that may not have the opportunity to have a family member, are there ways of apprenticeships, or are there ways of getting younger individuals? The median age of a farmer is 58 and a half. We got to figure out some way to get that median age down to sustain it, to keep the industry going.
But it is somewhat cultural. I think, more and more people are finding, I mentioned Metro, that you can live in a big high-rise apartment, condo, whatever, in Atlanta and be absolutely miserable. But when you're out on the land and you're working the land, I think your quality of life is superior. Is it not?
You just mentioned, like I said earlier, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
And and everybody don't have that opportunity, but it's just like the other day I was meeting with a young group of folks, and out of 30 individuals, there was only 2 that was agriculture related. And by the end of the day, I showed pictures of the farming aspects that I do, that a lot of them said, hey, can we come visit the farm? And there's a lot of agritourism where people can come to the farm. And that's the thing there. It's not to say that they're miserable, because that's the lifestyle that they live, they choose within those suburban areas because of family, because of jobs and that type of thing there. But it's not to say that they can't come out and enjoy the farm to see, but I've got to be willing to educate and take time to educate them to where we can come together and work as a community, because basically that's how we'll survive there, is like you say, for generations to come.
Related to that, I think you sponsored House Bill 172, which was beneficial to animal veterinarians.
Basically, there in this area, like I said, a lot of, like I said, going back to the beef industry, large animal. Basically, it's just, within large animal, it's just that practice, of livestock, serving as a veterinary on livestock and that type of thing there. So a lot of people have small animal practices, and they've gotten away from that large animal. So we struggle sometimes. I can do a lot as on the farm from all years of doing. But there are times I need that veterinarian for situations that I may not be aware of. So within that there, right, we wanted to incentivize to where we could, those large animal vets, or those vets coming out that would be willing to serve in those rural communities. And there's a certain parameters set within that. And it goes back to workforce development. That gives them opportunity to assist within their education after the fact, if they're willing to serve in those communities. And the thing there is that was 172. Took 2 to 3 years working along with Veterinary Medical Association. It goes back to relationships. They wasn't. We had to create that relationship because they wasn't all agreeable with some of the things I wanted to share. Well, this last year, basically, in 2025 and 2024, that was that one piece of bill, 172, that got on the desk for a vote, never got called up on Sunny Die. We brought it back in 2025, but it goes back to being that voice, community voice. It's that advocate. Basically, that one bill created so much awareness to veterinary medicine. This last year, there was 4 pieces of legislation within veterinary medicine, and all 4 pieces passed. So that one piece brought the awareness for 4 pieces of legislation. And I had the great opportunity of the day when Governor Kemp did his bill signings on workforce development. Mine was one of those 4 that was signed that day. And, and it's amazing. He signed that bill and he turned around and gave me the pen. He said, you're part of history from now on. Well, since then, over this year, working along with Veterinary Medical Association, I had the honor. I've always loved veterinary medicine. I actually wanted to be a vet when I was in high school. Didn't have the opportunity, but you still be that advocate 50 years, 40 years later. That I was recognized as Legislator of the Year from the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association. So that was an honor there. But we're already working on some stuff for the coming year. So it creates those relationships for the industry of veterinary medicine.
And we're going to talk about some of that stuff after we take this break. We'll be back with more with State Rep David Huddleston.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Oak Mountain Academy specializes in a customized designed academic approach tailored to meet the needs of our families. Our lower division prepares students with the necessary foundation to build excellence. Our middle division provides students with over 15 course offerings, providing them with opportunities to explore their talents and gifts. Our upper division provides personalized academic journeys, allowing them to achieve their dreams. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school, inviting you to journey with us. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us, where every path leads to purpose.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. David Huddleston's in studio representing District 72 in the Georgia House of Representatives under the Gold Dome in the great state of Georgia. So, next year's coming up just around the corner, just weeks away. What's in store?
Well, I think, like just finishing up on the last segment, pretty much with the veterinary medicine, like I said, working along with the Veterinary Medical Association, one of the pieces of legislation that we're going to look at doing is vet techs. And there are 1,100 vet techs shy within the state. And they've requested us look at, like I said, from a program aspect, because within this last year's legislation, we did telemedicine, incentivization, large animal, some licensing, and that type of thing. So within those vet techs, like I said, could we increase the abilities of that position to work under the supervision? It's kind of like a PA, nurse practitioner, but to work under the supervision of a veterinarian by use of telemedicine and that type of thing there. So we're just into the facts finding stage of putting some data together. I think we're going to work along with that, have some testimony in 2026 to actually put some legislation together, probably for 2027.
And then if they did that and then they had their own farm, then they'd have hopefully enough financial resources to make a go of it.
Very possible, that's absolutely. And that's the thing there is like you say, tying it in all together.
And let it be noted that on this show, we unveiled this concept years ago. We've been talking about it for several years.
But I think, too, some of the things come in 2026. I've got a couple bills dropped. One's basically integrity. Basically, a lot of times we get these phone calls, and I can look it up and read it. Basically, we get a lot of these phone calls to where these robocalls trying to buy you property or whatever like that.
Hates them, yeah.
And things like that. Basically, we was looking into it, and basically it's. Sorry about that.
Is that the phone number on the property tax?
It's basically the Taxpayer Privacy Protection Act.
Yeah, there you go.
And basically,
that's House Bill 874.
That's correct. And basically, it's related to general provisions related to ad valorem taxation of property, so as to prohibit the disclosure of taxpayer telephone numbers on property tax records sold, transferred, or shared with third parties. And there's, like I said, it's just that integrity, voter, of protecting your privacy and that type of thing there. So that's something we'll be discussing. And then I was actually on a study committee, basically, the tree care industry of some licensing. Mm-hmm. Do we need to look at licensing there? So I think there's two is going, like I said, that was during Helene when we really didn't get together the information. So basically there is may have some testimony to allow people to have their voice, to share pro, cons, whatever.
And where would that be regulated? Out of the Department of Agriculture, I assume?
That's kind of where we're looking at. We have talked along with the Department of Agriculture, if that so be the case. And it's not to say that to make so hard of parameters to within the tree care industry, but it's just to say basically looking out on the behalf of the consumer, but also the employer itself.
So getting a tree cut would price may go up.
Not necessarily, like I said, because it's not saying just putting those parameters to make it more expensive. It's just basically accountability and documentation, basically showing that the consumer is protected, but also the employer and the employees are protected too. So that there, like I said, I think it's just we need some more factual finding data, people to testify and determine what direction we may go, and it may not go anywhere, but at least we've got to work together on that.
Yeah, we're going to bust through the top of the hour.
And I think coming this year, you're thinking there was some legislation that was on the table, I think last year, and part of that is we hear a lot of campaigns going on, and you've talked some before talking about doing away with state income tax. I think this coming year, basically with Kemp, how he has incrementally dropped it down. I think we'll be at 499 or something like that. But I know a lot within the campaign of doing away with state income tax. So I tell a lot of people just to be educated, do their due diligence, because there may not be a state income tax, but there possibly be a tax, could be on other services. Because it does take money to run the state, because the state is a business. But I know that
$37 billion.
Yep, but I know that you've had some conversations that where some of them has come up on these tax credits, basically it's $16 billion of state income tax, but $30 billion of tax credits. Mm-hmm. So there's opportunities in there that can look to generate those funds to alleviate that. But, your biggest thing there is you just want to make those good decisions, because some of those tax incentives is for businesses that brings in jobs. And the last thing you want to do is do away with that to where they pack up and leave and the jobs go away also.
Well, the pressure is on, because I think Tennessee and Florida don't have a state income tax.
Doesn't have a state income tax, but they pay tax. I mean, like in Florida, there's a lot of, property tax, a number of taxes, sales taxes higher, toll roads. So there's many of ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of
so there's a lot of opportunities there that just be aware. But then too, you get thinking, I think think Governor Speaker Burns, along with that, basically one of his priorities is looking at property tax relief. So you get to thinking, if so all those tie hand in hand. But you get to thinking. I mean, basically, you always got to look at educational funding. Basically, it was on the table last year of sports betting, a conversation in sports betting. So there's a lot of conversations. Me as a state rep wants to hear from my constituents. So I toss all those out there to where they can think about it, generate questions about it, and allow me to know their concerns or their likes and that type of thing. Because when we come up there to make that red or green vote, I kind of need to know how those constituents feel.
Yeah, is there one besides red or green? That's it.
That's it. You got it. And I tell a lot of folks that's the thing about it, because you got 30 seconds to hit a red or green button, and when you want to represent your constituents as well as you can, but when you hit red or green, there's going to be someone that's disappointed, and I said that hurts me, because I know there's someone is disappointed, but I want to represent this district the best of my ability.
More than one person, I would imagine. You were out of the gate very focused on when in South Georgia Hurricane Helene came through. I think it's $7 billion worth of damages. What's the status? Everything up and running ever since then?
I think probably there's still a lot from what I hear that needs to be it's repaired. A lot of reparables.
Is that
a
why
lot of
they're
structure.
cutting all the trees on the interstates?
No,
That's not it.
Well,
maybe kinda.
Maybe kind of. Basically, I think because within the Department of Ag, there's the federal funding and things like that to assist those folks to try to get back their feet up under them agriculturally, not only agriculturally, but just within communities. So it's still ongoing. And that a lot of that. But I think a lot of that, basically, because Highway 16, the GDOT, a lot of times it comes down to maintenance, and basically.
Well, I heard during the storm, they couldn't get through because
well,
of all the trees.
That's what I'd heard basically on Highway 16 or Interstate 16, that there was a lot of trees down that alleviated first responders of travel. Mm-hmm. So they're going back and cutting back that right of way, no different than a power line right of way, but they're cutting back that right of way to where, because you get thinking, you want that interstate system to be travelable at any situation of evacuation or that type of thing there, or just first responder responding. So it's just good maintenance along the way that's cleaning them up. And like you say, it's being proactive, not reactive.
You were part of a resolution to inform and to focus on the pine beetle in West Georgia.
Yeah, basically there, I think the Georgia Forestry Association, they brought a resolution, and a lot of times a resolution is just what it is, it brings attention. So I think basically there, it goes back to maintenance too within the pine tree industry, because a lot of times, and even the young farmers, I believe the extension office, there's been a couple of I think even the harvest dinner, the agribusiness seminar at Carroll MC was related to beetles. And basically it's just educating folks on that, because it can wipe out a stand of trees, and there is a process of saving, working along with the Forestry Association. So it's just bringing awareness to the situation.
Also, House Bill 297 define better multi-purpose off-road highway vehicles. Are you familiar with that one?
I think that one is is that the ATV one?
Yeah.
Basically, but a lot of times what it is, I think, is basically if you've got a side-by-side, whatever that is.
But now a lot of farmers use side-by-sides.
That is right. Basically, they use them from farm to farm and that type of thing there. And basically, they just put a criteria there that if you get to thinking they're getting fancier and fancier. Some of those side-by-sides are more than a vehicle. So basically, I think if it's street worthy, and I think what probably brought that together was a lot of golf cart communities in the towns and that type of thing there. Make it street worthy, register them, and you can run around Carrollton Square, on your golf cart. So basically, like I said, as long as we're running county roads, crossing state highways, not running down state highways, it allows you to utilize those vehicles as a tool for the rural communities.
Yeah, they cost a lot more than my first car when I ever did. I tell you what. Okay, we've only got about a minute left. Anything? How people go about contacting you? We talk about constituent service.
As always, like I said, number one, the constituent service is the best part about it. Like I said, I've already had some emails and texts just from being on the Community Voice this morning to reach out to, and basically there, my phone number is 404-535-1110. My email is, and that's the best way a lot of times, like I said, because I can forward that email. It's david.huddleston@housega.gov. Please reach out to me anytime, because like I said, number one, love to meet all my constituents, love to work with them. Look forward to the 2026 session and years to come serving, because like I said, I believe in being a servant leadership, and always enjoy being here on Community Voice.
Well, thank you for coming in, David. We look forward to keeping up to date with you during the session and bringing you back whenever we can. And we thank you for listening. We thank our sponsors. Go out and make it a great day. You're in tune to WLBB Carrollton.